Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Being Me is Dope podcast, where we have therapeutic conversations to empower creative minds. And I'm Nate.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Enoch.
And today we will be discussing imposter syndrome. There's so many different ways that we can go with imposter syndrome. I myself have struggled with it. The more and more I've understood it, I've been able to kind of grow through it. But inadvertently, I know for me, especially when I started to really, call myself or step into the creative entrepreneurship realms, I remember specifically feeling like an imposter in a lot of the rooms that I would be in. Even up to recent, actually. I've had little bouts of it, and it's a lot shorter now, where it comes for like a minute or two, and I'm like, step out of that. But before, it used to like almost cripple me to where I would get anxious. I would feel like less than. I would just get very complacent, and I'd be stagnant in whatever I was doing. And I would self-sabotage. So as we dive into this topic, I definitely want to hear more about y'all. Have either of y'all struggled with, I would say, imposter syndrome?
Go first.
Me
for sure. Because I'm brand new to this content game and all of that stuff. Only been doing it for like a year and a half or whatever.
That's a light flex, though. That's a light flex. Because like your joint is super fire.
Yeah,
you
you
have
got the
super high
sauce
demand, so it's kind of like, you know what I mean?
But I think that's the reason why I experience imposter syndrome a little more now. Because like a lot of people want to work with me, and I be like, bro, you sure you want to work with me? Like, and like I'm like, bro, there's so many people out there to my eyes that are much better than me. Like I'm admiring their work. And I'm like, bro, you sure you want to work with me? And that's me doubting my own abilities, my own skills, my own gifts, everything like that. So I feel like an imposter a lot of times with a lot of clients.
How about you, Enoch?
It's interesting because I'm while y'all were talking, I was trying to think about like what my relationship with imposter syndrome is. And it doesn't really show up for me creatively, like really like that. And that might be just because I grew up in a space where I felt like what I was saying was not valued. So now I'm just so excited when people give me like space that I think my excitement overpowers any like adverse emotion I could have. But in my like outside of the creative realm, like in my regular life, like right now I'm saving up for a house, and I'm living with a good friend of mine, and that whole situation is I think where I feel the imposter syndrome, because it's like I don't have the things that I view as being aligned with being as successful as I feel sometimes. And so then it makes me feel like whatever presentation people are receiving of me, they're going to think is fake once they find out like my living situation or the fact that I currently don't drive right now because I don't have a car anymore. And so it's like these kind of going back to a conversation we were having off camera, these markers of status, especially like as a masculine body that we're told are necessities. Like you have to have a car, you have to have your own place, and like all these things. And these are all things I've had at a point in time, right? And maintained effectively. But it's like, because I don't have them right now, I'd be feeling fraudulent in spaces. Like, especially now that I'm like, I started the year with a breakup. And so like, I'm also like trying to re-engage with dating. And it's like, you about to have this dope conversation with me. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like, oh, you got a roommate. Oh, you be on a bus. And it's like,
That's a tough dynamic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially like when you said, I feel successful. But the other person doesn't necessarily see that. And it goes back to the question of like, but then what is success? And that's tough because you want to be like, I'm successful. But also there is this feeling of like, dang, I do feel like a fraud because of
Mhm.
XYZ, because I'm supposed to have these things
Mm-hmm.
and these things aren't in place. And that can be just a whole situation where you beating yourself up.
Absolutely, which I definitely be doing. I be punching on myself
That joint is
emotionally.
rough, man. That joint is
Super
rough for
rough.
real. I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine. And then for me, very similar in similar aspects in regards to certain things I feel like I should have. Like I feel like there's a way people view me.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's this way that I view myself that isn't in alignment. Not from like a moral standpoint. Like my character's solid. You know what I mean? I stand on that.
Same.
But there's another status where it's like, yo, Nate's here, and it's like, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
really not, and it makes me feel at times like fraudulent.
Mhm.
Like, yo, why? And it makes me like shrink down sometimes instead of just being big and bright like I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an actual current challenge for me now. Perfect example. We were just at Black Entrepreneurs Day about a week or two ago. And, dope experience. It was incredible being there with Dame and John. I'm at the world famous Apollo Theater. Like, it's up. Like, we got VIP service. Like, we loving it.
shit,
Like, it's a
poppin'.
dope time. We backstage. We all around. Like, it's fire, bro. VIP party, everything. Hotel paid for, travel paid for. And I remember having a moment backstage before we came out for the panel or whatever. Just like, I ain't supposed to be here. Like, it was like a voice like, who do you think you are? You know what I mean? And I had to help and check that voice because we about to go out and talk on stage. I need to be confident. You know what I mean? I don't need to walk in with my shoulders slouched like, oh, man, I'm beneath y'all. And I really had to check myself and be like, you know what? While you're here with Damon John's also here with you. And I had to like really check myself because I'm telling you, bro, I was sitting there at one point and I don't get nervous when I'm on stage. I speak for a living. So I'm sitting there and all I heard was doo-doo. I was like, I'm like looking around. I look over, I see visionary area. I'm just like, is that my heart? Is that? And then somebody's like, Nate, and I like snapped out of it. And I was like, yo, what is going on right now? And it just felt like everything was so big around me. Like, yo, you're not supposed to be here. You lucked up. And it's just like, nah, everything is happening in alignment because of who you are and what you've done. So you're supposed to be here. You know, don't walk in cockiness, but walk in that confidence. Because if you aren't confident, people get a lesser version of you. So now you're shortchanging people. You know what I mean? That's the real fraud part.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely. Absolutely.
That's where I was at with that. And that was a real challenge during that moment. But I was able to recover and then embrace it once I got home of like the joy of it all. Like, yeah, that was dope. You know what? But it doesn't stop here. There's levels. There's going to be another level. Another level. And I have to consciously catch myself in those pockets. Because if I don't, I just start to self-sabotage quickly, y'all.
I think a good way to well, for me, it worked for me. I tried it one time. It worked for me. I had to understand that my responsibility to my people has to be much more important than how I feel on the inside. Because I'm going to psych myself out 1,000,000 times, but my community needs me. You get what I'm saying? So I have to actually understand that so I can get out of this imposter.
That's good, bro. That's I mean, I think about you saying like your community needs you. What happens if you? I think about the people who like really poured into me over the years, or maybe I read their books or watched their videos. It's like, yo, what would have happened if they were caught up in that cycle of imposter syndrome?
Yep.
I would have never got this value that I so desperately needed when I was in the time in my life where it was dark. You know what I mean? And the same for you. It's like, yo, your community needs you to show up confident. And same for you. It's just like, dang, why does this keep coming up all the time? So that's kind of like now, like I'm thinking, and I want y'all to kind of dive into this with me. It's like, where is that coming from? like, where's that voice coming from? You know what I mean?
I think it's so many things. How can I jump into this? Because I'm thinking a couple different things. All right, I'm gonna just start talking and try to connect them as I go. So one thing, I was talking to my homie. We run a men's accountability circle together for black men, and he was talking about being at his job and feeling imposter syndrome because he's used to always having the answers, and in this new position he was in, he was finding himself not having the answers in the way he was used to, right? Like sometimes his answer was like, I'm not sure. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? And so there was a way in which like imposter imposter syndrome was manifesting because he wasn't he wasn't engaging with himself in the way he was used to engaging with himself. So he genuinely felt like an imposter, right? Like I'm not the version of me that I'm used to being, right? And I think that can show up a lot of times where it's like, let's say like, you know, you are used to being a confident person and then you feel a moment of like lack of confidence. Then it's like, all right, you can start the spiral of imposter syndrome because the gateway is the fact that you've now entered a space that you don't view as being a part of who you are. You know what I'm saying? And then you start the spiral of like, all right, well, if I feel nervousness right now and I'm never nervous, maybe I shouldn't be here. You know what I'm saying? Like, what am I doing here if I'm this version of me that I didn't think I was, right? And so then there's like this character. It's almost like it's a perceived character flaw. And I guess tying that into where I was also thinking about is like, there's so much about how we are raised that is just nurtured in the sense of being who we assume everybody else needs us to be. Right? Like so much of like when we're children and our parents bring us into a space is like, act this way when this person is around, or we're in the grocery store, you got to do these things, right? And da 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 da. And it all means well, it has good intention. Well, partially because parents also don't like being embarrassed, right? But another part of it is like, you're teaching me to base not only my understanding of self, or my understanding of like what should and shouldn't be off of how people are responding to me, right? And people are not always the best gauge for that. And so then when we get older, there's this idea of like, we kind of have to always be ahead of the game because we don't want to be in trouble, right? And we don't think about it like that as adults because it's like, you know, we can't be in trouble. But essentially, I feel like that's what it's tied to, right? And so then it's like, all right, if I can't predict all of the things that I need to watch out for, I probably don't have the skill set to be here. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, who am I to be in this position if I can't predict all of the factors I'm underqualified in that regard. And then again, it's like, that is also imposter syndrome. Yeah. You feel me? So like, I think a lot of it just comes from the ways in which we're brought up.
Yeah, it gets buried deep in the subconscious because at the same time, it's like, who told you this stuff?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
When did this become facts? You know what I mean? And a lot of times it's not. It's this voice. It's our voice, you know, repeating these things. And it's like, you got to check yourself sometimes. You know what I mean? Everything that you believe right now isn't factual. And a lot of stuff, like you said, you were raised up on or you were taught. It's like, I'm realizing now as an adult, it's like, okay, my parents did what they could.
Absolutely.
They taught me as much as they could. But there comes a time and point where I got to question some of that stuff. Not because they're these bad people, but it's because they taught me what they knew. You know what I mean? And what they knew may have been incorrect because of how they were raised. You know what I mean? So it's not their fault. But it's like, oh, I got to check this. So when I move forward, I make sure that I'm also teaching truth and most beneficial things for my child. And I know for me, being that my parents were my first teacher, you believe everything they say.
Yep.
And again, it's not that they're maliciously trying to like steer you any path, but it's like, yo, she told me this was this. These are facts.
Yeah.
And you don't question it. It's like, yo, these are the facts because this person loves me. These are the facts.
Yeah.
And then you get a little older and some stuff happens or some traumas happens and you wonder why you're like triggered by certain stuff and you got to start checking and you're just like, oh, all right, that was off. That was off.
Yeah.
That wasn't it right there. So even me in the season I'm in expecting a child, I'm thinking like, yo, how do I'm a mess up. You know what I mean? I know I make some mistakes, but it's like, yo, how do I make sure as your first teacher, I feed you some truth? You know what I mean? And I just feed you what I believe because everything we believe ain't true.
Yeah,
You know
absolutely.
I grew up thinking that, you know what I mean, a lot of stuff was the devil and it wasn't. I grew up feeling like Bobby Boucher. Like, for real, that's how it was, man. I love my parents. I love my mom, but I remember at that one point she was deep into like religion. It wasn't even like a love for God. It was just like this deep like religion in the Baptist church, and it was like, yo, everything was the devil, like Rugrats, like mad stuff. I was just like, this can't be. Everything can't be the devil. I can't do nothing. Then gotta take me now. That's all I was thinking. Like, yo, just take me now. I can't do nothing.
I failed the mission.
What's the point? Like, I can't even live my life. I can't even have my friends outside having fun. I feel like that's the devil. You know what I mean? And I had to question a lot and grow through a lot and show grace too. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, there's so many different directions with this imposter syndrome thing, man. And I guess let me ask y'all this: how do you combat it now? Because I know me personally, I can't just be like I'm 100% over it. Yeah. For me, I feel like it's something I'm going to have to not necessarily deal with or suffer with for the rest of my life, but it's something I have to be conscious of every day. So I don't slip back into the funk of I'm an imposter. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm like, nah, dude, you worthy. Like, chill out. You cool. But it's something I have to consciously do every single day. It's like brushing my teeth. It has to happen. Or I run the risk of slipping back into it. So how would you say y'all are getting through or have gotten through or some practical things to step into a place where you feel deserving of where you are or what's coming?
So I know for me, when I'm like stepping into spaces whether it's like for my creative agency or just spaces like BME is Dope, I have to understand that they trust me with this. So I have to trust myself with it. Because if the consumer for this conversation trusts me with the product that I'm delivering, I have to trust in the product that I've created.
That's a bar.
Which is, it's kind of like I'm relying on them to trust me, but that's how I'm coping with it in this season right now.
Word.
That's good. I got something for that. That's good.
I don't remember who said this. I know it was a woman. But she was talking about how we often think that we have to earn our spot up front. So it's like, you give me this thing because I earned it. But she was like, sometimes you earn things on the back end. So it's like you get the position and then you earn it by way of how you perform in the position, right? And so like creatively, that's how I like to think about things. It's like, if I feel like someone's giving me something that is past like where I think I'm at, I'm just like, yo, I'm gonna just earn it on the back end. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna learn whatever I need to learn, ask whatever questions I need to ask, and level up through the process instead of like being leveled up already at the beginning. And then like with like the personal life thing, since that's where I feel like I engage with imposter syndrome the most, I just been trying to just like lean into it heavily and like just be open. Like even when we talk about my feelings of like desirability, right? Like I have a gluten allergy that manifests as like these really bad, like the word I be wanting to use is rash, but it's like way more severe than a rash, right? Because it's like literally like I develop like open wounds on my skin. And it's a symmetrical / autoimmune disease, which basically means like whenever I eat something with gluten in it, it's symmetrical because it appears on both sides of my body. So it'll never be on one side at a time, right? It's predominantly like on my arms. Sometimes it can go to like my neck or my ears, depending on like how severe the cross contamination is. And it's like burning, itching all day long, right? If I'm wearing regular clothes, for the most part, I can cover it up. And so like there's a way, like I recently had a bad outbreak that I've been recovering from for like the past 3 months. And there was a way in which like I'm engaging with people and I'm like, you only find me attractive right now because I'm covered up. You know what I'm saying? But as soon as you see like what my arms look like uncovered, you're going to be like, nah, this ain't what I thought it was, right? Which is another form of imposter syndrome for me, because it's like, I actually don't deserve the attention you giving me because I'm not as attractive as you think I am. You like physically, actually, right? And so I just lean into it. I did a whole photo shoot. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, where like I just put my arms on the forefront. And luckily, like I'm more healed up now than I was at the time of the photo shoot. But it's like leaning into that and being open about that space that I'm in, because then that gives people outside of me the opportunity to combat whatever negative talk I am not believing myself enough to combat on my own, right? So like sometimes I'll literally be like, yeah, I don't feel equipped for this. And people will be like, I don't think that's true. You know what I'm saying? And then break down the reasons why it's not. And I'm like, all right, because sometimes we don't believe ourselves as much, right? And we have to lean on our community to instill the faith in us that we lack in ourselves. There's this anime called Gurren Lagann, and one of my favorite quotes from there, Kamina, who's like the main character in the beginning, he's talking to his younger brother, and he's like, his younger brother like struggles with like self-doubt, and he's like, believe in the me that believes in you. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like I carry that in the sense of like, if I'm failing at believing in myself, I'm gonna just be open about that, and I'm gonna believe in the person that's believing in me, and like just carrying whatever they say and holding that, and like, all right, that's the confidence I'm gonna move off of.
Wow. So much to like.
So many bars.
You know what? Gotta stay tapped into all of our channels, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all of it. Make sure that you're following Being Me is Dope for up-to-date content, for new podcast releases, all of those different announcements. And with that being said, gentlemen, we are going to wrap this podcast episode up. My name is Nate.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Enoch.
And this has been another episode of the Being Me is Dope podcast. Until next time, peace.